Hello everyone and welcome to the final event of this MEXTESOL 2020 virtual convention. To close the day, we will have today a panel called Brilliant Women, Wonderful Ideas, in which 4 outstanding women in the ELT field will share with us their insights regarding inclusion. Please allow me a moment to introduce our panelists today. Chesla Ann Lankaitis, PhD, is an assistant professor of Spanish in the Department of Romance Languages at Binghamton University. Dr. Lankaitis is the department's language coordinator and the program coordinator of the Master of Arts in Teaching in French and Spanish Adolescence Education. She dedicates herself to teaching Spanish and identifying the most effective ways to facilitate the learning and teaching of a second language. Besides having published numerous peer-reviewed journal articles and book chapters, she co-edited the book Engaging Teacher Candidates and Language Learners with Authentic Practice, and she is also an editor of the MEXTESOL Journal. Let's welcome Dr. Lankaitis.
Hi, my name is Chesla Ann Lankaitis, and I'm so happy to be with all of you today. I wanted to give all of you an update on my bio. I recently accepted a full-time, tenured Spanish teacher position at East Stroudsburg Area School District at East Stroudsburg High School South. Go Cavaliers! I am super excited to have returned to the high school classroom where my teaching career began, while I'm still able to teach part-time as an adjunct lecturer at Binghamton University. An educator can truly make a difference, and teaching has always been special to me. It's my 20th year, which I can't believe. I don't know where 20 years have gone, but from the first time I stepped into a classroom to now, there's one thing that remains the same: my passion that I have for education, for languages, for students, for life. It's super important to make sure as educators, and I know all of you guys are already doing it, is making that connection with our students, making them feel valued, apart from the content area, because that's super important, but really making sure that our students know that they're important, that they're heard, that they're part of a community in our classroom. It's important for us, being the teacher, to cultivate that community. So I wish all of you an amazing conference. I wish all of you an amazing panel that we're going to be participating in. And I just wish all of you an amazing teaching career. Continue to do what you're doing. Continue to share that passion you have, and continue making a difference.
Dr. Ruth Petzold arrived in Mexico City on November 1st, 2018. As a regional English language officer for 6 countries in this region, Ruth oversees public diplomacy programs focused on English learners and English teachers, including the English Access Micro Scholarship Program. Now on her 7th tour, Ruth previously served in Tashkent, Moscow, Dakar, Rabat, Amman, and Cairo. Prior to joining the Foreign Service, Ruth taught at universities in Istanbul, Budapest, and in the US. Let's welcome Dr. Petzold.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank MEXTESOL for the invitation to be on this panel. It prompted me to think more deeply about this topic of inclusion. Though it's easy for us today to focus on our current issues of discrimination, represented by things like the Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter, I realize the fight for inclusion has been around since the beginning of history, probably, as people have fought for acceptance into communities with more power, communities with opportunity. Slaves from antiquity to today, the oppressed in feudal and colonial societies, people of color, women, the LGBTQ community, all have desired equal opportunities and a fair playing field. Clearly, we're not there yet, but we continue to make progress. How? Inclusion results from shifts of attitude and shifts of action. They build on each other to oppose exclusion. For example, in a place I was not expecting this topic. I was reading a book about a 19th century landscape gardener in the United States named Frederick Law Olmsted, and I learned that because of anti-slavery attitudes in the North, he was influenced to create New York City's Central Park as an inclusive place where we'd learn better how to live together. And that would then strengthen inclusive attitudes in the people who were using the park, who would then act on those beliefs. But besides our homes, really the best place for nurturing belief in an inclusive society is school, preferably public school. The U.S. Embassy's education programs, including those of RELO, aim to build tolerance, equal opportunity, and inclusion. Come learn more at our sessions and our booth. Thank you.
Kara Abu Al-Hassan holds a doctorate degree in educational leadership and management from Eton University, USA. She has 24 years of experience in education. She is the current president of the MEXTESOL Association in Egypt. Kara is a certified speaking examiner currently working for both the University of Cambridge in the UK and the American University in Cairo. She has presented in many national and international conferences inside Egypt and the USA. In addition, she designs and presents training programs in the fields of education and leadership on a freelance basis. Let's welcome Kara.
Hello, everyone. It is great to be on this panel among this group of wonderful women. In fact, when we talk about inclusive education, we are talking about a belief that all children are competent and that all children are capable. Inclusive education, as I see it, is all about providing every child with their right to education. The inclusion of children with physical or learning disabilities, I think, helps us create generations that are against discrimination. When education is more inclusive, kids learn that they are all the same, that they all have the same rights to be supported by the community to learn and to grow. They understand that they are all welcome to this world with whatever diversity they bring to it. They learn that there is real value for their individual strengths and needs. However, inclusion involves lots of restructuring for the cultures, policies, and practices in schools. Because in order to respond to this diversity of students in the right way, there are a lot of challenges. For example, the challenge of funds for special equipment and for resources. Also the challenge for preparing trained and certified teachers and school staff, because sometimes even the school leaders lack the necessary knowledge and skills for inclusive practices. There are also the challenges of class size, time, and safety of the students. Yet, I still believe that no matter how hard it is and no matter what it takes, our schools should be ready for this because we cannot deny any child their right to learn.
A native of Mexico City, Mexico, Brenda Bernaldez is the program director at Teach for Mexico. She has been in the field as a teacher, an academic manager, teacher trainer, and program manager for over 20 years. She holds an MA in education and regards reading as one of her driving forces. Let's welcome Brenda Bernaldez.
Hello, my name is Brenda Bernaldez. I am very, very honored to be in this panel with these wonderful and powerful women. A little bit about me. I have been in the educational field for over 20 years. I have had the pleasure of teaching different ages from kindergarten to university. I have taught in the private and public school, and I have been a program director or supervisor at public and private institutions. Currently, I am the program director for Enseña por México, which is the Mexican chapter for Teach for America. I love reading. Reading is one of my passions, and I'm currently studying a master's in education and leadership.
And we will now begin to hear from your panelists, answering the questions that they have received so far. Chesla, what is inclusivity, and why do we English teachers need it in the classroom?
I'd like to start off with a definition that I've taken from Cornell University Center for Teaching Innovation. Inclusive learning environments are ones in which students feel that their contributions and perspectives are equally valued and respected. So, why are these inclusive learning environments needed for the English classroom? I believe that the answer is quite simple. They're needed so our students feel that the classroom is a safe space where everyone can share their ideas, where everyone, regardless of their background, their preferences, their chosen names, the personal pronouns they use, that everyone is equal. And this type of environment is needed so our students can feel safe. And we have a great responsibility to create these environments for them. And then once they leave our classroom, hopefully, then they will take everything that they've learned in this inclusivity and transfer it into life, right? Because teaching is a lot about life lessons. And it's important that we create this environment in all we do, right? We need to be kind to one another. We need to always value one another. We need to respect one another.
Ruth, what do you consider are the three most important concepts to bear in mind when beginning to discuss inclusion in any institution, and why?
I would say that the three most important concepts are: first, do you truly believe in the value of inclusion? Second, what does inclusion look like in education? And third, how will you handle incidents in and out of school when exclusion happens? So first, do you truly believe in the value of inclusion? This is the most fundamental, because belief in inclusion is the foundation all action is built upon. Then the second, once your school, community, or society agrees on its importance, you have to decide what it looks like. What characteristics are desirable? For example, students with physical disabilities are accommodated to the same degree as students without disabilities. And what characteristics are not desirable? For example, students of color being looked down upon. And the third concept to bear in mind when you're starting to discuss inclusion in your institution, I think, is how you're going to handle incidents of exclusion. They will happen. We're not perfect. And we must use them as teachable moments. We need, first of all, to acknowledge what's wrong, then work together to at least improve on the situation, recognizing that some solutions take time. Changing school facilities, changing biased textbooks, changing prejudiced minds, they're all a process.
Brenda, what could senior school officials, coordinators, principals, directors of studies, administrators, do to better support their teachers in an inclusive classroom?
First, I would say, as I mentioned before, it needs to be an inclusive institution. It's not only about the teachers including the students, it's about the teachers and the principals and the coordinators and the community, including the students and the parents. I have seen many institutions in which they are inclusive when it comes to disabilities, but when it comes to maybe race or language, they are not so inclusive. And it's from the principal's level down, it's not only from the teachers. So we need to be an inclusive institution. What can we do? First, define what is inclusiveness and what it means for us and what it means for our institution. And then, based on that, we need to provide training to the teachers on how to address the different issues that inclusiveness is going to bring into this institution, and that the new challenges that we're going to have to face because of this inclusiveness. And train the teachers, train the community also. It's very important. It's not only the teachers and the parents, but also the janitors and the administrators. I remember I had a friend who was on a wheelchair, and she needed to go and register for the new semester. And when she arrived to the counter, she couldn't see, and the administrator was like, "Well, I can see you next." So it's not only the teachers, but also the administrators, the whole community, that has to be trained into what inclusion is and how we're going to deal with inclusion in our institution.
Chesla, what would you say is the greatest benefit inclusion brings to the teaching and learning process?
Well, to me, in addition to setting that tone in the syllabus, what I have written in the syllabus, I also have displayed in my classroom. And here are some of the words that is on a poster. And it's also, again, appears in my syllabus. I am excited that you're in my class. You are trusted. I support you. You are respected. I will hold you to high expectations. You are important. I am here to help you. You are capable. I will listen to you. You will succeed. I believe in you. We are in this together. So, by letting students know that they're valued, the greatest benefit to me is that students want to then share more. They want to share their talents. They want to share all the gifts that they bring to the classroom because they know that your classroom is a safe space. They know that they're valued. They know that they're respected. So, the most important or the greatest benefit to me about inclusivity is the community that you'll get, that you'll build with your students because of that value and that importance you're placing on them.
Ruth, what would you say is the biggest challenge inclusion brings to the teaching and learning process?
I think the biggest challenge is to shift our point of view. We should not view diverse students as the problem, trying to get the students who are different to conform to the system. Students are who they are and deserve an equal opportunity to receive an education. Rather, we should insist that the system accommodate, even celebrate diverse learners. Inclusion is built on a respect for difference.
Brenda, how can inclusive practices be incorporated in early childhood settings, and how can parents become involved?
First, I want to say that including inclusive practices in early childhood it's vital. There are many researchers that tell us that the sensitive periods for developing social skills and for developing usual paths of reaction happen in the first 6 years of the human life. So, if we include these kind of practices in early childhood settings, we are ensuring that these practices are going to keep happening during the life of this person. Now, how can the parents help and how can we include them? First, we need to become an inclusive institution. And this is not only in the sense of including people that have specific learning needs or that have disabilities. This is including people that come from different backgrounds, that have different races, that speak different languages. And we don't need to go and look for them, but we can open our doors for them. So if we talk about races and languages and etc., the first thing is accept them. And the second, for example, in the case of languages, being sensitive to providing guidance to that person in the language, then the mother tongue of that person. If we're talking about people with disabilities or with specific learning needs, we need to be trained to cater for what they need and what kind of teaching we're giving and what kind of input it's best for them. So, how can we include them? First, I would say we need to become trained in what inclusion is and what are the things that our institution can and can't do, and also become very, very aware of how we're going to include them as a whole, not only from the teaching part and the learning process, but also in the community. It means if we have someone that has the typical example, if we have someone that has a wheelchair, how are we going to make sure that kids who are around him or her play with him and maybe make other kind of games? If we have someone that speaks another language, maybe teach your children one or two words so they can start talking to him. And I think it's also a lot about the way we as adults approach these differences, what it's going to set a tone for the early childhood learners um, to become inclusive in the classroom and outside of the classroom.
Gada, what else would you like to add to Brenda's remarks?
Okay, first, in early childhood settings, teachers need to provide a highly engaging learning environment where the children find their needs are met and where they are challenged according to their capacities in ways that help them stretch these capacities to the maximum and thus develop and grow. Also, teachers must recognize the value of play as an essential factor for learning and development, with considerations of any necessary assistance for the children who need it. The learning environment certainly must be structured in a way that ensures all children are supported, safe, and able to participate. And teachers also need to encourage all students to be independent, avoiding overprotection and giving them a space to try and learn. In early childhood settings, teachers need to create routines because this provides a structure where kids feel comfortable and safe in a predictable environment. Encouraging role play, group work, and peer work gives the teacher a great opportunity to practice inclusion in a more authentic situation. In an inclusive early childhood class, also the teacher needs to adjust the whole class for students with special needs in order to remove any obstacles or disadvantages that they may meet as a result of their condition or their disability. For example, adjusting the rules for break time for a diabetic student who might need to eat, or creating regular break-up activities for an ADHD student to make sure she or he does not get distracted, or perhaps using lots of visuals for the sake of a child with a hearing impairment. One very important thing to help teachers in inclusive early childhood classrooms is building cooperative relationships with families and involving them. And this takes me to the answer of the second part of the question on how to involve parents. The success of inclusive education programs, in fact, requires a lot of parent involvement. And we see sometimes that lots of parents drop the kids at the gates of the school or kindergarten and just come back to pick them up without really getting involved in their education or learning journey. Parent involvement helps extend teaching outside the classroom and makes the learning experience more positive for the kids, so this must not be the case. We can do that through many ways to involve the parents. By, for example, inviting the parents to know more about the school, the staff, and how we do things. At the beginning of the year, calling them in to orient them on all this and to establish rapport and create channels of communication. By asking parents to volunteer for one day in the classroom or to come to observe. Also, by sending daily reports about the individual progress of the kids. We can do that by making resources available for the parents to read and learn about the kids' case and how to deal with it. We can also send or recommend activities and material that the parents can use at home to complement the work done in the classroom, to extend the curriculum and to reinforce what we have taught in the classroom. And to make sure when sending this material that it is really used, we need to make it clear to parents on how to assist their children with this material, or with any other homework, for example, that we provide. So we need to explain how to use this material and the benefits of using it.
We need to help parents create a study routine for the kids if we want them really to be involved. Maybe we can record videos and send them to parents to share the updates on progress of their children, and include them in decision-making by accepting their feedback and really using it. A good idea is to create a parent-teacher administration group that promotes communication and understanding among all those who are responsible for the child's learning and well-being. We can provide workshops or seminars to help parents with the knowledge they may lack, and invite them in celebrations where they can come to school and have fun with the whole staff and of course with their kids. It is very important as we do this to be very sensitive to the feelings of parents and to give them space to voice their concerns, and also to show real appreciation for their efforts when they collaborate and get involved with us. I think this is the way we will be able to get parents involved with us in their child's education.
Chesla, how do you approach the issue of inclusion in your teaching practice?
Well, I think it's first and foremost to make sure that what your thoughts on inclusion are included in your syllabus, in your document that you send home to parents that students see. It's really important for students to be able to read your thoughts on inclusion, and you're already creating that sense of community and that sense of value. So I will read part of what I include in my syllabus, but I have a diversity and inclusion statement. And I remind students that as a member of the Spanish class that they're going to be taking with me, that they're part of a community. And in this community, we respect each other for our identities and skills and experiences. We hold each other accountable to a high level of excellence, and we promote this environment where everyone can feel safe to engage in learning and feel supported and contribute to the group. And with that being said, I also tell my students that it's my personal goal to make sure that I get to know each of them individually, and that I'm there to support them in my classroom and in their academics and in their future. So right from the get-go, I think it's super important. That's my approach. Just take it head on. And that statement and the syllabus really sets the tone for your entire course.
Brenda, what adaptations in terms of assessment do you consider need to take place in an inclusive setting?
So here I'm going to talk about two different kinds of inclusion. When we're talking about someone that doesn't speak the language as his or her mother tongue, and when we're talking about a person with specific learning needs. So if we talk about the mother tongue, it's simpler in the way that we can translate the tests for the students, or instead of um, having them write, because sometimes writing it's more difficult for them in a foreign language, to maybe give them the chance of speaking or recording something. This is not necessarily when we're going in an exchange program, but it happens a lot in Mexico, where we have people whose native tongue is not Spanish, and they should be given the opportunity of answering tests in their mother tongue, either in a written form or verbally. Then, when we're talking about people with a specific learning needs, um, we need to think about how we pause the assessment. For example, if we have someone that it gets very anxious because he has a social emotional um, disorder, it could be autism, for say, just mentioning one. Well, it can be as simple as dimming the lights or making the room more quiet. And that's not only going to help him, it's going to help him, her, and every other student if we make it a more relaxing and comfortable environment. Um, it's also sometimes students are more visual, so having some questions that can be answered with drawings and mental schemes, mental maps, instead of only writing. There are other people that are very good in writing, so maybe in a math exam, giving them chances to write also and not only solve mathematics problems. So trying to adapt the way we assess to the way they process the information, it's, I think, key. And we need to rethink, are we assessing what they can do, or are we assessing what they know? Because, for example, I am very bad at math, but I know a lot of math. So maybe I'm not going to be able to solve the problem, and that's going to give me half a mark, but I can explain you how this should be solved, and that can give me half a mark also. So what is the objective of the question, and what is the objective of what we want um, them to show? If we want them to, if we're trying to see if they know vocabulary, isn't is it as valuable if they write it or if they um, speak it? I think it is. And just a final thing is, we need to be specifically very, very careful when we're teaching English to people who are learning the English in their second language. For example, I had the pleasure of working with people in Chiapas, in Sinacantan, and some of the students' mother tongue was Tzotzil. And so we were teaching English to people in Spanish or using Spanish as a medium, and their second language was actually Spanish. Their mother tongue was Tzotzil. So maybe we can also be more sensitive about that.
Cara, what do teacher education programs need to consider to better prepare future teachers for inclusive classrooms?
Well, teacher education programs need to consider many things if we want to prepare effective teachers for inclusive classrooms. First, of course, those programs need to provide the necessary pedagogical skills and the knowledge of individual subjects. Yes, they also need to provide information about child psychology and child development, and most importantly, about the importance of inclusion. I mean, these teacher education programs must create a belief in the value of inclusive education. They must also make sure the teachers are trained to become sensitive to the different learning requirements and needs of every child. Throughout these programs, teachers must develop a research attitude. They should learn how to become reflective practitioners with skills that make them think about their practices and continuously adjust their plans. In other words, these programs must create future teachers who believe in change and development and in the value of lifelong learning. There must be practical placements in schools for those teachers in inclusive classrooms to link the courses of those programs with real life or field experience. Moreover, teacher education programs need to help teachers develop resilience and to equip them emotionally with the skills that ensure they will be able to maintain their well-being and handle all the challenges they will meet in their classrooms. Another important thing to consider is to train teachers in how to work with parents and collaborate with them. And finally, those who deliver teacher education programs must themselves be role models who walk the talk. They should be ready to act as mentors and coaches for those teachers throughout their first years in the classroom to provide them all the support they need.
Ruth, why do you consider it's important for teacher and teacher trainers to participate in a conference with inclusion as its theme?
I'd like to say that besides the home, the place with the most possibility to change society's attitudes about inclusion is public schools. Though I understand why they exist, private schools of all sorts separate students out and undermine the ability of public schools to help us learn to live together. Sadly, we've built a society that encourages competition and nearly tribal identities over cooperation and inclusion. Yes, competition is motivating, but it is also destructive and exclusionary. Research shows that young people who are socially excluded are more likely to have drug and mental health problems, poor school performance, and negative or risky social behavior. By contrast, cooperation builds community and inclusion. According to a recent book, Homo Deus, by Professor Yuval Noah Harari, cooperation through communication is what allowed Homo sapiens to conquer animals far larger than we are and to conquer the world. Today there are more people on Earth than ever, and we're better connected than ever, and we have more power than ever. We can use this to make our world better or worse. It depends on how we engage with others. We can be suspicious and attack, an approach often used by politics or religion to quote-unquote strengthen support. Or we can cooperate, which I believe should be used by us, educators, especially second language educators, who help build those communication bridges. A conference is an opportunity for teachers to examine beliefs. And if we indeed believe in inclusion, we are better able to act upon that belief in collaboration with those we meet here.
And now, for the second part of our panel, we will be taking questions from the live audience, both in the chat and in social media.